Okay, let's see. Oh, hey, I totally. I can't do that again. I did this twice already. Writing jokes is hard. Oh, hey, I totally didn't see you there, clicking on the video again. Anyways, last time we left off when we were making some actions. Basically, there was a text action, and yeah, so things like that. But let's start at the beginning. What are actions basically? Well, actions are your way of telling the engine that a character should go a certain place, or somebody should say something specific, or a text should appear there, or an item should be added to the inventory. Basically, everything you can need in an adventure can be done in actions. That being said, Visionaire has a few neat things going on with actions. For example, right now we are in the scene folder in the living room. You can put them into a scene object like we did in the last tutorial. You can also put them into the scene right there. You can even put them into the characters, and you can even put them let's get to the outfits. Let's take a walk. You can even put them into the into that certain frame of an animation. You can put in an action. You can put in an action right here, an action part basically. So what does it mean? It basically means Visionaire doesn't really care where you put that certain action that does a certain thing. For example, if you want to use the TV, you can do a TV scene object and put the action in there, or you can basically put everything related to the scene into the scene actions right here, or you could even if it is a character specific action, you can put it into the character folder. Visionaire doesn't really care about that, but it is important to keep track of it. Basically, put things in a place where it makes sense for you and for others to find it. If I want an action for the TV, I probably shouldn't put it into a character folder. I call it folder, but it's really just a place. I wouldn't put it there. I probably would make a scene object and put it into the scene object thingy. Let's create a scene object, and let's call it TV. Oh, actually, let's learn right away how to rename it properly. I mean, sure, you can call it TV, but you don't really know what does it mean. Is it a mark, or is it an object, or is it maybe a trigger or something? So basically, what I used to do is I call it OBJ TV, which basically is an information for me that this is an object I can interact with, and its name is TV. The same goes for start. I shouldn't simply name it start, but more like mark start. Mark isn't the name, isn't the guy, Mark being the mark. You get the idea of the name underscore thing. Obviously, you want to discuss that with the team and basically use one language, so to speak, so everybody knows what's what. So anyways, we got the object TV, and right now we do need an outline. The edit object area button, and we create the little rectangle here for the TV. Let's be a little bit more exact about that. I guess, yeah, or maybe not. We'll just leave it there. Sorry. And let's create an action in the scene object. For that, I just select the scene object and I just click the action tab. And if I click plus, it basically generates a default action, which is executed with a quotation mark, which is basically just the engine telling us that it still needs a command. The command being obviously the one command we have with a mouse interface. I'm gonna rename it for the tutorial purpose. For my interface, it doesn't really matter what kind of name it has, because there is no action text on the screen. There is no take this item on the bottom of the screen, so it doesn't really matter for me. So I just call it left click, and I'm gonna save it. You will see why in a second. So I go back to the living room and to the object and actions. So you can see the execution type. We got basically two groups of execution types: execution at destination and immediate execution. There are both very, very different. In fact, if it's a character moving on the scene and it should interact with something, I think I would almost always recommend using the execution at destination. I will explain why in a second. Actually, I will show you. The immediate execution, I really think it is more of a menu thing. You get the immediate response after you click a button, and you don't want that in the scene. But like I said, I'm going to explain and show this later on. Let's just do the standard job. Executed command on object. You notice that there isn't a left click here. And you might remember that I just wanted a simple interface with left click being everything I can do to interact with an item, and right click being basically examining the item. And you can see that there isn't a left click in the execution at destination. You can see it at immediate execution, which is right here, but we don't want to use it. So instead of a left click, I got this dummy going on, which I'm going to show it again, which I created here. That's the button of the mouse interface. It's not a real button, it's a command, basically, a command button. It basically is only for left click purposes, so that's why I only need one. So going back here, and the command which should be execute the thing is left click. Okay, so far so good. So the only thing we are going to do now is display text by character, current character. You could select the main guy, which is the only character I have. If you can switch between characters, I think it is a smarter choice to use current character, but yeah, I usually click on the character I can play at this moment, which is only one character. Just, it's my preference, but you don't have to do that. Hey, this is a neat action which got executed at the object. Okay, I'm gonna save that, and I'm gonna run the game, and I'm gonna test it, and it doesn't work. And of course it doesn't, because I forgot something. Every time I create a scene object, I have to set up the alignment of the character to the object. Hey, look, there's a typo. Hey, Visionaire team, you should kind of fix that. Anyways, you should create a mark where the character is standing if you click on the item, and you should set up the alignment. Obviously, right now he stands in front of the TV, so he should turn backwards to see it. Also, you might want to add an object name, which in this case is television. And if I save and run the game, you will see the cursor says television, and if I click on it, the action will play, which is so far only the simple text. Okay, so why shouldn't I use the actual left click command? Actually, let's just do that. Let's left click. And the only thing I basically changed right now was changing from execution at destination, executed command and object, to left click, immediate execution. And I'm gonna save it and I'm gonna run it. And what happens right now is things are happening. Really strange things. I don't know why he disappears, but if I would guess, I think it's an animation error. Let me check that. Talk animations and stand animations. Stand animation is fine. Right, there is no talk animation. Basically because I haven't mirrored the animation yet. So I'm gonna save that. And I'm gonna run the game again. And what happens right now is basically he stands there and talks about the TV. And sadly this happens everywhere. Like I can stand here, I can press, and he talks about the TV. Or I stand over there and he doesn't even look at the TV, and that is not something we want. Of course, you probably already thought, if you're experimenting with the engine, you probably already thought about the workaround where you can do that, and that is great because that means you are experimenting. Let's do that workaround actually. You can say that the character should go to the object with send character current character to object, and we're gonna specify the object in this little thing here. We only got so few, so the object he should stand on is the object TV. I'm gonna mark that. I'm gonna save the game. I'm gonna run it. And what happens now is he walks to the television, but he doesn't turn upwards. So we have to add that as well. Align character upwards. I'm gonna save it. I'm gonna run the game again. And I'm going to the television and the animation plays. Now there is a big issue with doing an immediate execution. And actually I'm gonna set up two things right now. The immediate execution I'm gonna execute with a right click, and the way I did it with execute command, the command being left click of the mouse interface. And I'm just going to do, hey, this is a test text. Nice. I'm gonna save it. And let's run the game. Okay, the big difference here right now. This is the left click. And this is the right click. You might not notice any difference, which is great, but as soon as I do this, I use left click now. I left click on the television, but I choose to go somewhere else, and I click, and I click, and I want him to go there. Nothing happens. Now if I do the same with the right click, look what happens. This is the immediate execution. I'm gonna walk around, and I want him to stand right there. And this is what happens. What basically happens is, let me move that aside. What basically happens with the immediate execution is the command send character to this object and wait tells that basically the character should go somewhere, align to the back, and say whatever it was you want him to say. With me clicking wildly around in the scene, the first action simply got cancelled. which is basically I want him to stand here now. So the first action got cancelled, which is this one. So it basically just jumps to the next one, which is align to the back and display the text. And that is not really something we want. I mean, maybe you just accidentally clicked something and want to walk back again, then it happens. Or maybe you just want to like click around and just walk through a scene. Maybe the scene is even scrolling and you clicked on it by accident. This is left click, obviously, because it doesn't happen. I don't even need to click on the television first. I do right click now again. And I just clicked on the television once, and the bug keeps happening. So what we could do, there's another workaround for that. We actually can begin a cutscene. And what the cutscene does is basically... Did I save the game? I think I didn't. What a cutscene does is basically it makes sure the player can't interact with the scene or the character or the inventory or anything at this time. You will see that if I right click it, the whole interface disappears. But that is also not really what we want, right? I mean, we don't want the character to stand here and no matter which item we click on, to be in our little cutscene. Like, I mean, the best example I can come up with, I looked at the television 10 times, and every time I get this cutscene, which I of course can cancel with escape, but that's not really ideal, or that's not really a nice gameplay. I hope you get the idea. I try to explain. So this is left click, and it just walks away, and this is right click now, and it just, I don't know, I don't like it. I really don't like it. So my recommendation is to use the execution on the object. Also, if you compare the two actions right now, here you only have to tell the engine that it should be executed as destination with a command, and to simply put in the left click dummy thing. And you only have to basically put in there what should happen at the place of action. Where the character goes is only already specified with the object position, and where it is aligned as well. The engine does a very good job of that, so you really don't need to do that. And if you do the immediate execution, by default you have to do all that preparation stuff for every action. So I really think this is the way to go. But that is my opinion. Obviously, if you come up with something different that works, roll with it. This is just my way of doing it. So anyways, we now know two different ways of starting an action, which is basically execute a command on object, or immediate execution with a right click. There is another one. What if let's just guess here. Let's just guess the character is here, and the character is kind of stupid, and he walks over there, and at this point he should realize in a small and tiny cutscene that there is a TV, because he is stupid and he doesn't know that. You obviously can't do things like that with a executed with a command thing, because that would require you to click on a very specific item. What you want to do is having a spot on the ground that when the character touches it, like only walks over it, that the action gets started. That kind of sounds dirty. The way how you can set it up is in the way systems of the scene living room. We go to the way systems, and there are action areas. And this is what we need. We can create a new entry, which is basically TV trigger. And what we can do is we can set up a shape on the floor, like this. It doesn't have to be too neat, but it should get the point across. Maybe we make it smaller, like this. This is an action area now. When the character crosses the border of this patch, of this rectangle, the action will start. And let's just set up a quick cutscene. Begin cutscene. Also, if you don't know where the action parts are, over time you will find out the first letters of the stuff you're looking for. In my case, it was B, because the part I was looking for was begin and end of cutscene. So I just press B, and it basically jumps to the begin and end of cutscene. So here the cutscene begins. Then I want the character to go to the object. The object is, of course, the TV. And then he should be aligned. You kind of recognize this because that was the basic setup for the, in my eyes, wrong way to start an action. So he goes to the TV, he turns around to the TV, and he is saying, "This is a cutscene." Well, he obviously doesn't spell cutscene open. Cutscene triggered by an action area. Okay, and then we copy and paste the begin of cutscene, and we can simply switch it to end. And then we got the begin of cutscene, which means all the interfaces are disappearing and you can't control the character at this moment. The character goes to the TV object, it turns to the TV, and then he says his line. Let's check it out if it actually happens. So it should start here. Notice that you can't really select it, but if you walk into the area, the cutscene starts. Yes, this is indeed a cutscene triggered by the action area. Also, there are two execution types. The character enters the area, or he leaves the area. I guess you can figure something out with both of them. If you enter it right now, nothing happens, but if you leave it, he will walk back, and he will find out that there's a TV, and he talks something that breaks the fourth wall. We have a little problem now, though. Let's just assume for a second that I could go through that door, and this would be my next goal, basically. So I click to the door, but this happens. The cutscene gets triggered again. And again. And again. And again. And I can't go to that side because the cutscene gets triggered again and again. You get the idea. So what we have to do is basically we have to make sure that the cutscene gets only triggered once. Let's rename this as well. Trigger. We have to make sure that this cutscene gets triggered only once. And the way we can do that is via conditions. Conditions, kind of like actions, can be placed anywhere in the scene, in a scene object. I think even on characters. Yeah, even on characters you can do that. Obviously, again, as with the actions, you want to put them at a place where they make sense, because you don't want to look around for 2 weeks to find a simple condition. So we have the way system, and it's basically in the scene, so it would make sense to place the condition into the scene too. And let's create one to see what it does. Let's rename it TV trigger. And what it basically does is it has only two states, true and false. What it tells the engine is really up to you. I mean, I usually name it differently, like TV trigger played once. Right now, it is obviously false because it hasn't played yet. Or TV trigger never played, which would be true. This statement would be true. And it doesn't really matter. It depends on how you phrase things. You should phrase it clearly. In my case, it would be TV trigger played once. So let's save that. And you have to set it up in the action. Let's go to the way system. Now we have a new toy to play with which is conditions. And conditions, display, let's move it up. Conditions are good for if, then, else things. For example, like this. If conditions, here's a condition folder area with all the condition stuff neatly in one little corner of the context menu. So let's say if the condition go to scenes, not scene object, scenes, living room, trigger played once. If the condition TV trigger played once is true, then play this. It tells you really simply what it does. If the condition TV trigger played once is true, play this. Which is kind of wrong, because if the condition TV trigger played once is true, then we basically wanted to do nothing. So let's set it to false. This will only happen if it hasn't played once. Now put the where is it? Let's put the end if here. It's kind of like the end of the if condition. Okay, let's put in copy and paste, copy and paste. And what should happen if the TV trigger is true? Well, basically nothing. Actually, you don't even need that. Let's delete it again. It was a brain fart of me. So let's save that. And if you followed along and actually paid attention, or if you can think in conditions already, then you will notice that the condition isn't working yet. And there is a simple reason for that. I did that on purpose actually, because one thing is missing in that thing here. You have to tell the engine that this condition is true after it played. So what you simply have to do is maybe in the cutscene or outside of the cutscene, better do it in the cutscene. You have to find, let's see what it's called in English, set change condition. There it is. You have to change the condition, and in this case you go to scenes again, living room, TV trigger played once. You have to change the condition of TV trigger played once to true. Let's try it out. So I'm going to enter this area here, and I'm going to leave the area again. The cutscene is played. I press escape to make it shorter, and now I should just be able to leave the action area, and it does exactly what I wanted it to do. The only thing you have to really keep track of is how you name your conditions and what state they are in right now at this moment in the game, and then you're basically golden. Another way to start an action is to have another character. So let's actually bring in another character. Because I'm lazy, I'm just going to duplicate the first one and call it main double. And maybe even spell him correctly, because he is much smarter and better than the original. And let's set up a start point, mark, double start, and let's put him over here, and of course he faces to the right. So now we have to specify that he doesn't need an interface because he is only an NPC. He doesn't walk around at all. But of course we have to tell the engine that he should be at double start. Okay, let's save that. And actually let's make the action right away. If you left click on him, let's display a current character. Hi dummy. Whoa, there should be this. Okay, and let the main double guy say, who are you? Whoa, who are you calling a dummy? You dummy, because he is actually a pretty witty guy. Let's start it. And you will notice it doesn't work. I mean, he goes to him and the cutscene gets triggered. But this action doesn't work. Why is that? Well, there's actually a really simple reason behind that, because I left something out in the last tutorial when we did the cursors, or the mouse interface. When we did this, this command button, I actually didn't go over the command properties. Not only can you put in a name in here, which I don't do because the action text, which is use item with item B, is not displayed on my screen. I lost my train of thought. Anyways, the important thing is this here. The command can be used on object, characters, or objects and characters. If you have verbs like the classic Monkey Island or Sigma Kraken interface, you kind of want to have things that are work on objects and things that works on characters. Or even if you have like this coin interface from Monkey Island, you have to differentiate between those three things. For now and for this purpose, we have to use this one. I usually only use this, and I'm going to explain how you do that in a second. I'm going to explain how do you do that with characters in a second. But if you want to use it on characters and you don't want to use a workaround, you have to use this here. And you can also check or uncheck if you want to use this command on your own character. I kind of found out it usually is in the way, but I don't know what kind of puzzle you have planned, so knock yourself out. Let's try this again. And I forgot to delete this this action. Let's delete that action because it is really annoying. Way system. And let's delete the whole trigger. Okay, run the game. And if we click on him, here we go there. Hi dummy, who are you calling a dummy? You dummy. That is Oscar material right there. Actually, there's another little tiny problem with this right now. If there's a character on screen and you want to talk to him, and you use the where is it? The character to click on instead of an object, you don't really know where to set up the point. I mean, basically you can stand here and click on the character and you will talk from the back right there, or if you stand there, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. I mean, you can stand right in front of him and it kind of looks like they are making out, and it's kind of awkward for everybody. What you can do is you can go to the character screen and you can go to the character. You can position for you can set up a position for executing an action, which is basically like the mark you can set up for the scene object actions. And if you press now, okay, let's put it there. I actually don't know where he's standing exactly. If you press OK now and you save the game, and if you run the game now, no matter where you are, you can click there and you will always walk to this one spot. Obviously, if you have a character around following you, you have to set it up in a different manner. You kind of want them to be together if they are having a dialogue, but this is kind of advanced stuff, so let's keep this for another time. As I said before, this is not really the way I do it. The way I do it is, let's go to the interface again and to the left click. Command, and I only have objects in my game. I mean, I do have other characters, but they're not specified as other characters. What I do is I'm going to the living room and I basically set the character up as an object, which is main double. Again, the OBJ has nothing to do with setting up anything in the engine. It's just a way of showing this is an object. Or if you feel better about it, you can call it CHA, which could stand for character or something like that. I know that mark double start is around here. So I'm gonna set up the area for it around here-ish. I mean, I can adjust it, and I gonna set up the position and the alignment, and I can even put in a name, which would be main double, and I can put in an action. Left click. And just to make sure that you get the idea that left click in my games is always interact, I'm gonna let my character say, I don't want to use him in any way. Yeah, that doesn't sound too nasty. And you don't need a second command to actually look at objects. You can just right click, take the right click here at execution at destination, which is a neat thing. So basically you can set up the look at with a simple text line. Hey, he just looks like me. That wasn't funny, but it's the honest truth. So I save the game, and if I run it, it should actually work. I mean, this is the main double, and if you move the cursor around, you can actually see where the object area is starting and where it's ending. And I was actually pretty accurate. Huh, nice. And I left click him, and he does what he was supposed to do. And and I right click him, and he does that. So that is another way of setting up actions. Obviously, you have here in the action part, you have a lot of stuff to test around and play with, and I encourage you to find out about different stuff. What happens if you change a character? What happens if you walk around? Or what happens if a character chases another character and stuff like that? Knock yourself out. This is the basic action setup I have. And I basically use it with only one action button. I really don't want to go too much into detail on how to do a Sam & Max style interface where you right click and you change through the different words basically, or how to do a Monkey Island coin thing. Mostly because I don't use it, and mostly because I don't really can explain it well. But if you are looking for another way to create an interface, there is this one website which I keep recommending, and it's basically GlenFX tutorial about Visionaire, and he does a great job of explaining the Sam & Max way of doing an interface. And he even has inventories, and he talks about actions as well, so it is definitely worth checking it out. But yeah, that was basically already it. It was a little bit longer than the last 2 times, but mostly because I was stressing the point of not using the immediate execute thing. I hope you learned something again. If you have questions, feel free to comment it, feel free to message me. I try to get back to you as soon as I can, and if I can help, I love to help. Otherwise, I wouldn't do the tutorials. I actually forgot where I was going with this, so I will see you next time.